right, so on our second day of week 5, our Thursday night item, we have a new lecture. This time it's search engine optimization for e-commerce, and this is one I've used in the past. I looked to see if there was anything newer, but still was a good example of what topics this one needs to cover. So if you come in here, again, you should be taking notes right here. So this is in your lecture. This is on your week 5 Thursday night item. Oh, I need to get rid of that. That's from last semester. But we have intro, or number 1, intro understanding CEO, researching customers, auditing user site usability and structure. Okay, so these are the ones you need to put in your Google Doc and then submit along with the class notes that we're doing right now. Okay, so that's the lecture for this week. Search engine optimization is an important topic too. And this is referencing it from an e-commerce perspective, but everything they talk about here is relevant for how to understand optimizing for search engines. And so I think this is a good introduction concept here. Okay, so the bulk of what we'll talk about are these two items today. Okay, so we're going to take that GitHub pages or github.io that you did last time that I had you put together, the James Williamson, right? And then what we're going to do is clone it locally, right? So I have an image here, right? So right now we've been working on what's called the remote repository. This is up on GitHub. So now what we're going to do is actually we're going to bring this local, and we're going to do that by obtaining it through what's called a Git Clone Command. Okay, so when you're logged in, and I'm going to end up, I think I'm going to switch to Windows to show this for other reasons like my user account. So I'm just going to show you here. So I'm already logged in. I'm in VS Code, but I'm in my repo right up here, and we're going to end up coming over here, and you'll do this, which is to do a git clone. It may be if by default selected here, so just you can clone through SSH or you can clone to HTTPS. So we're going to clone through HTTPS. We'll do that in a second. Before we do, here's what I'm going to recommend, and if you take my future classes, you'll see me recommend this, is that on your local system under docs, create and I'm doing this, you could do this from the VS Code. I've just noticed it's a little hard to do it sometimes the way I like to do things, so this is my workflow. But I'm going to create under my documents a new folder. I'm going to call it CIT82, not 83, FA17. Okay, so that's the folder. So in VS Code then I'm actually going to also open that new folder because it's becoming in VS Code's understanding a new project. Okay, so under VS Code, and if you're using Atom, it's a similar thing. I'm going to open a folder, and then I'm going to navigate to, so in my case I'm going to go Documents. So this is, we're no longer using the drive, we're going to use Git on GitHub. So I'm going to go to Documents, I'm going to go to CIT, this one, I'm going to say Select Folder, and then boom, I'm going to come into the folder. It's going to take it just a second here to do that, and then you can see there's nothing in the folder yet. And actually I'm going to do this one more time after I do the clone, and you'll see why. I'm going to close this. Okay, so now that I'm in here, I'm going to bring up that command again for the integrated. Boy, that is hard to see. Is it just Control plus? Let me see if it's just Control Shift plus for the integrated terminal. No, evidently not. Oh, but that does make the screen bigger. That's nice. So I'm going to go into the integrated terminal. Okay. Now what happens, and the reason I did that in VS Code, is it opens this in my integrated terminal. Now you could be using Git Bash here if you wanted to, right? So you definitely could be using, again on Windows you could be using Git Bash. In Mac, just your straight terminal will work here as well, right? You could be, but I just like working in one program, so just showing that. So here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to do Git Clone. Okay, so those are the first two commands. So I'm saying git, you're going to clone, and now I have to give it that repo. Now the reason I'm in this subdirectory is it will create that from this point in the directory. Okay, so now I'm going to come over here, I'm going to grab that, I'm going to copy that, I'm going to bring it into VS Code, and then I'm just going to use the right paste command for Windows, and then I'm going to hit enter. And so what it's doing is it's going out and it's grabbing all the files for that folder, and you can see, if you noticed, it actually popped in right here. Okay, so now I'm going to close VS Code one more time, and now, oh, actually I didn't have to close it, my bad. So now I'm actually going to open that IO directory, right? So did it start up? Just taking a minute here. When VS Code starts now I'm going to open that folder instead of the CIT82 directory. You could have done it either way, no problem. It's going out to do a check out on the net. So while it's doing that, there we go. Now I'm going to open folder, but this time I'm actually going to go double click into here and then open that folder right there. Okay, close this. Did it get it? Yeah, just took it a minute. Again, I'm running virtualized here, so it's running a little slow, right? It's running a little slow. So now I'm in that. So these are the files we created, okay, that we created on GitHub, and now they're on our local repo. Okay, so just to be clear about that, and so now we could open up that index file. As a matter of fact, I'm going to have you do that because we'll make a change. I'll have you make a change in here, which I've noticed I didn't do what I said, so it's time for me to do that, is to go through and make this my page about for me. But anyway, I'm going to close that. I'm going to go here. I'm going to go to terminal, right? Because I want to just walk you through the process now. Now that we have, and actually I should have done it, and I actually haven't. Do git. Okay, now again, notice where I'm at, right? I'm on the master, but I'm on this directory. I'm going to do a git status. Good, there's nothing's changed, we're all good. So when it says this, when you're clean, right, there's the working tree is clean, that means there's been no changes made. But if I came up here and I made a change, right, and then I came down here and I did git status, what I'd see is that there is a change. I've seen now I have a change to here. So in the concept that I was talking about earlier, right, so we have taken the local repo and now we've placed it in remote repo, we've placed it in local, and now we're making changes to it, and then we'll stage it, and then we'll commit it into the local repo, and then we'll push it into the remote. Okay, so these are the commands that you use. So now we're going to do a git add. Okay, so I've made a change to this file, this index file. Okay, and so what you would do is do a git add. Now there's a couple of ways you can do git add. You can specify the file, or let's see, I ran into this in CIT82. I just did git add space star, and that added anything that had been changed. So if I have that in there, oh, you know what I forgot to talk about? This is good. I didn't talk about the git ignore file. That's okay, I will. I just thought about that. But anyway, so I've now added that file into my local repo. If I do a git status here, I'll notice now that that file turns from red to green, which means it's now in the staging area. And then I could do a git commit -m space, and then here's my commit message, and I would say updating my index.html file. Okay, good. So I've committed that file. So I've staged it, now I've committed it, and now if I was actually going to go all the way to updating the site, right? So right now, again, if I look at it, if I look at my let me just show you. I could type it, but why when you don't have to? Man, it's lagging. I must have just too many things running. Oh, you know what? I know what it is. I can hear my computer running, so it means it's getting hot. So when your computer gets hot, it runs slower. right? So now here's the state of that, my GitHub repo, my GitHub IO. So now what I'm showing you here, let me go back here to VS Code, is because now I've only made these changes locally, right? So you could keep making changes, right? So whatever changes else that you needed to do, you could keep doing this process. And generally what you do is you kind of make major changes to certain areas, you do add them into the repo, and then you commit them into the local, right? And then when you're done, you actually do a git push, and what that does is that any commits into the local repo now get pushed up to GitHub so that it's updating the GitHub. There we go. So now if I go over to here, and it may take a minute, this is something I noticed last time when I was making changes, I got a little impatient. It does take a few minutes for those changes to flow all the way through. Okay, so while we're waiting for those changes to flow through, just to confirm, just so you have this, and again, this stuff needs to go in your notes. What we did here is we staged it by doing a git add, we committed it into the repo, and then we did a push right into there. Now in my case, because we had done the clone, I didn't have to specify the remote name or and we're not using branches at this case yet. But so all I had to do was do a git push. I didn't need the rest of it, and that's part of why I like doing the clone, is it sets up this information in your local system, and for people new to this it's just a little bit easier. Okay, so I'm going to go back here, right, and I'm going to go back and see if my changes have actually made their way all the way up. Yep, they did right there, so I can see that that did happen. Okay, so then what I'll have you do is make a few other changes to this site, and I'll put this in the writing, but at least a couple, so that because really at this point now we're actually going to and that's actually my next item. So what I don't always plan this well, but sometimes it just works out, is that the other item that we have is we need to start talking about your project 0, a 25% of this class. Okay, so by the way, just to finish up on this, what you want to do then is show us, right? So I went over the command. Okay, so once you clone it, take a print screen of your log and post it here, but I actually ended up going a bit further, which was actually doing, no, we did a git. Oh yeah, so I'm going to have you here actually do a git log. Let me show you that. Glad I looked at that. So what that is just a git log, and take a print screen so you can see all the commits that were made. Okay, and the most important one is the last one, really, in this case. So I want to see the commit that you actually made from the local, right? So maybe that's what I should have changed the message to, is from, committing. Well, no, it doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. Okay, so just FYI, that's what you need to do for that, right? I'll need to take that off because that no longer applies. So last thing, right? So hopefully you got some of that in your notes, right? That process you need to go through. So what I've done here on the project 0, and this is again a big part of this, is I've made the project available to you. And what I want you to do is look over the requirements and give me any feedback on the requirements. Okay, so here's where you can find this. So what I did is, before I recorded today, is I went ahead and made, so it'll jump for you from week 5, then the next one will be 9, and you can see the week is project 0 in here, right? So here are the requirements that are going to be for this semester's project 0, right? So look over this. You'll basically be selecting topics, any 20 topics that you want, breaking them into categories. You're going to end up, I'll suggest you use Bootstrap, because that's one of the ones one of the lectures will start soon in this class. It's good to understand Bootstrap, because even if you don't develop primarily in it, somebody will probably give you a Bootstrap because it's so popular, right? And I'll talk about, you don't have to write a lot of content. Most of the content you'll get is from the stuff you've already written. And then, like each page needs unique titles, right? So So this is so I just want you to review this and think about these requirements, right? So I just want you, that's what you'll do for this last item in week 5, right? Is you'll need to do that. So that's the work this week. I think it's, we're getting close. Again, what you're going to see starting next week is we'll end up doing the second part, and then we'll move into a little e-commerce, and then for the last 3 weeks is when we'll talk about Bootstrap. And actually we're going to move to a Bootstrap 4 because it's the latest version and there's some great training out there on it. And then we'll talk about some templates that you can grab and other things, so that because there's just some easy stuff you can use. All right, I hope this was helpful, and I'll talk to you later.